I wasn't supposed to be there. That's not a moral observation. That's a navigational fact. The coordinates blinking on my console belong to a region so heavily regulated that even smugglers, professionals with flexible ethics and a deep appreciation for bad ideas, tended to steer clear. But my autopilot had other ambitions. It rerouted mid-jump with the confidence of someone who pays no consequences, and before I could argue with a machine that doesn't understand arguments, I dropped out of hyperspace in front of a detention facility orbiting a star that looked like it had already given up. The station didn't greet me with warnings or threats. It simply existed. That was worse. I checked my systems. No hails, no scans, no alarms, just silence like the place was pretending I wasn't worth noticing. I took that personally. Great, I muttered, leaning back in my chair. Either I've found the most polite prison in the galaxy, or I'm about to become a cautionary tale. The docking bay opened before I requested access. I stared at the console. Don't do that. It did not apologize. Inside, the station felt wrong in a very organized way. Clean corridors, perfect lighting, no guards in sight. Everything was in place, except the part where someone should be stopping me. My boots echoed like I was the first person to ever make noise here. I considered turning back. I even took a step toward the exit. Then a door opened down the hall. Of course it did. Fine, I said. Lead the way. I've clearly lost control of my life. The door slid shut behind me once I stepped through. I paused. I'd like to formally object to doors making decisions for me. No response, rude. The corridor narrowed, guiding me deeper until I reached a holding chamber. The glass wasn't opaque, but it might as well have been. It shimmered faintly, like it couldn't decide if it wanted to exist in one place or several. I stepped closer, half expecting an alarm, a guard, something dramatic. Instead, I saw her. She stood in the center of the room, barefoot, unmoving. Her skin held light beneath it, not glowing, not exactly, but carrying something that shifted when she breathed, as if her body remembered stars better than air. One of her eyes followed me immediately. The other adjusted a moment later like it had to catch up. Okay, I said quietly because apparently that was the best I had. That's new. She didn't react. No fear, no curiosity. Just stillness. I tapped the glass, not because I had a plan, because tapping things is the universal language of confusion. Hey, hi, I'm not authorized to be here, which I assume makes this a mutual problem. Nothing, I exhaled. Right, silent type, I respect that. I also fear it, but mostly respect. The door to the chamber unlocked with a soft click. I looked at it, then at her, then back at it. I feel like this is a test and I'm failing by existing. Still, I stepped inside. Up close, the air felt different, like it had been filtered through something older than the station. She turned her head slightly, both eyes settling on me now, perfectly aligned in a way that made me uncomfortable for reasons I couldn't explain. "You're not going to attack me, are you?" I asked. "Because I've had a long day and I'd prefer not to die in a place that doesn't even have decent lighting." She said nothing, then she moved, not toward me, past me. The door behind me opened before she reached it. I turned slowly, watching it slide aside as if it had been waiting for her specifically. "Oh," I said, raising a finger. "That's concerning. That's very concerning." She stepped into the corridor. No alarms. No resistance. Just the quiet compliance of a system that had decided she no longer needed to be contained. I followed, because at that point I was committed to whatever terrible decision this was. "You know," I added, glancing around at the obedient doors and silent cameras, "most rescues involve effort. This feels like I'm accidentally stealing something the universe wants me to take." She kept walking. I hesitated for half a second, then sighed and went after her. If this ends badly, and I have a strong feeling it will, I'd just like it noted that I tried to question it. Briefly. Very briefly, but still. By the time we reached my ship, I had already accepted two things. First, that I had just committed a crime large enough to deserve its own documentary series. And second, that she was somehow in charge of everything without doing anything at all. The docking clamps released before I touched the controls. I stared at the console. "You're kidding." She stepped past me and into the main cabin, her movements quiet, unhurried, like she had already been here 100 times and was mildly disappointed it hadn't improved. "All right," I said, closing the hatch behind us. "New rule. If you're secretly controlling technology with your mind, I'd appreciate a heads up. I don't like being outperformed by silence." No response. I dropped into the pilot's seat and manually initiated departure, mostly out of spite. The ship hummed, then paused, then adjusted its own trajectory before I finished inputting coordinates. I slowly leaned back. I'm going to pretend that didn't happen. The stars stretched, and we slipped into hyperspace. For a while, there was only the low, steady vibration of the engine and the faint distortion of light beyond the viewport. I glanced over my shoulder. She stood near the rear of the cabin, fingers brushing lightly across the wall as if reading something invisible beneath the metal. "That's just a storage panel," I said. "Contains mostly bad decisions and emergency rations I regret buying." Her hand lingered there for a second longer. The lights above flickered, not a failure, just a brief hesitation, like the ship was reconsidering its own existence. "Okay," I added, pointing vaguely at everything. "If you break my ship, I will be very disappointed. Not angry, just deeply, emotionally disappointed." She turned her head toward me. Both eyes focused now, no delay. I paused. "You fixed something, didn't you?" The engine sound shifted slightly, smoother, quieter. I blinked. "You did. You actually did. I've been trying to get that noise out for months." She said nothing, but her gaze moved away, already uninterested. "Great," I muttered. "Mysterious, silent, and mechanically gifted. That's not intimidating at all." I stood up, pacing once across the cabin. "All right, let's establish some basics. You don't talk, you don't panic, and doors seem to respect you more than they respect me. Is that about right?" She watched me. "Fantastic, communication is going well." I grabbed 2 cups from a compartment and poured something that claimed to be coffee but had long since given up on honesty. I held one out toward her. "Here. It's either this or recycled water, and I'm trying to make a good impression." She looked at the cup, then at me, then back at the cup. For a moment I thought she might take it. Instead, the liquid inside shifted, not spilled, not shaken, shifted like it briefly forgot it was supposed to stay still. I froze. "No. No, that's not how liquids work." The surface smoothed out again. I slowly pulled the cup back. "You know what? I'll keep this one. You clearly have opinions about physics." I took a cautious sip. "Tastes the same. That's almost disappointing." She moved past me then, stepping closer to the viewport. The distorted light of hyperspace reflected faintly across her skin, but it didn't seem to belong to the outside anymore. It adjusted to her, bending slightly, as if unsure which direction to follow. I watched her for a moment, then sighed. "You realize I have absolutely no idea what you are, right? No answer, or why that place let you go. Silence, or why I helped you." She tilted her head slightly, just enough to acknowledge the question without answering it. I rubbed my face. "This is going to bother me, isn't it?" The ship gave a soft chime. I glanced at the console. The navigation route had changed again. I did not touch that. The destination wasn't one I recognized. I looked back at her. "Please tell me that's not you." She didn't move. The ship adjusted course on its own. I exhaled slowly, staring at the shifting coordinates. "All right, new plan. I stop asking questions and you stop, whatever this is." The hum of the engine deepened, smoother than before. I pointed at the console, "And if we end up somewhere illegal, which statistically we will, I'm blaming you." For the first time, there was the faintest change in her expression. Not quite a reaction, not quite understanding, but something. I leaned back in my seat, watching the unfamiliar stars stretch ahead of us. "I have a very bad feeling about this," I said quietly, "and I say that as someone who makes bad decisions professionally." The ship didn't argue. Neither did she. That somehow made it worse. She left without asking. No dramatic exit, no meaningful pause, no mysterious final look that would at least give me something to overanalyze later. One moment she was standing near the viewport, quietly rewriting my understanding of reality, and the next she was. I checked the cabin, then the storage. Then, for reasons I can't justify, the small compartment where I keep emergency tools and a sandwich I forgot existed. Okay, I said to no one. Either you've mastered invisibility or you've decided I'm not worth explaining things to. I'm going to assume both. The hatch was still sealed. No alarms, no decompression warnings. Just absence neat and complete like she had been edited out of the scene. I stood there for a while, waiting for something to happen. When nothing did, I sat down slowly in the pilot's seat and stared at the controls. Right, I muttered. Back to normal. I love normal. Normal doesn't bend physics. The ship hummed softly, almost pleased with itself. Don't start, I warned it. For the next few days I committed myself to routine, simple routes, small jobs. Nothing that involved mysterious facilities or silent passengers who could negotiate with doors. I told myself it was over. Just a strange detour. A story I would exaggerate later for questionable entertainment value. That lasted exactly 3 days. The first sign was subtle. A cargo manifest updated itself mid-delivery. Not incorrectly, just differently. Items rearranged into a more efficient layout I hadn't considered. I frowned at the screen. All right, helpful, unsettling but helpful. The second sign was less polite. A navigation beacon I relied on blinked out as I approached, then reappeared slightly to the left. No, I said firmly. You don't get to move. That's your entire job, stay. It didn't listen. By day 4, I was having conversations with my ship again. Look, I said, pacing the cabin. I don't know if this is her, or you, or me slowly losing grip on reality, but I would really appreciate a stable universe. The ship chimed once. Don't agree with me, fix it. It did not fix it. Then came the silence. Not the comforting kind. Not the peaceful, nothing is happening silence. This was the kind that felt like something had stopped talking mid-sentence and never finished. Communications channels went quiet. Not busy, not jammed, just empty. I leaned over the console, adjusting frequencies. That's not good. That's extremely not good. Usually, even in the worst regions, there's noise, static, fragments of transmissions, someone complaining about something. The universe is rarely quiet. Now it was. Okay, I said slowly. Either everyone collectively decided to take a break or something is very wrong. The answer arrived a few hours later. Not as a message, as an absence. I dropped out of hyperspace near a trade route that should have been crowded. Ships moving in and out, signals overlapping, a chaotic dance of bad coordination and worse timing. There was nothing, no ships, no signals, no debris, just empty space holding its breath. I stared out at it, hands resting lightly on the controls. You've got to be kidding me. The console flickered, not malfunctioning, adjusting. Coordinates shifted, I didn't touch anything. No, I said immediately, we're not doing this again. The ship disagreed, course corrected. I grabbed the controls, trying to override it. I said no mysterious destinations. We talked about this. The ship continued anyway, smooth and deliberate. I exhaled slowly. Fantastic, I'm being kidnapped by my own vehicle. The stars stretched again as we entered hyperspace, but something felt different this time. The distortion wasn't chaotic. It was aligned, controlled. Like it knew exactly where it was going. I leaned back, staring at the shifting light. If this leads back to her, I just want it on record that I did not volunteer for a sequel. The engine's hum deepened. Time passed, maybe minutes, maybe longer. Hyperspace has a way of making time feel optional. Then we dropped out. I didn't recognize the system, which, to be fair, happens often, but this felt different. There were structures in the distance. Not ships, not stations, something else. I squinted at the viewport. Okay, that's new. I don't like new. The console lit up again, displaying data I hadn't requested. Biometric readings, not mine. I went still, No, I said quietly. No, no, no. The readings were familiar, not in a comforting way, in a you've already made this mistake once way. I slowly turned toward the rear of the cabin. If you're back there, I said, voice steady despite my better instincts, I'd really appreciate a warning this time. No answer. I stood up, taking a cautious step, then another. The air felt different, not heavier, not lighter, just aware. I stopped halfway through the cabin. I'm going to say something, I added, glancing around, and I need you to understand that it comes from a place of deep concern. Silence, I exhaled. If you've somehow gotten more powerful in the last few days, I am officially out of my depth. A faint sound interrupted the stillness. Not a knock, not a signal, more like a shift. I turned toward the viewport. The structures outside weren't stationary. They were moving, slowly, deliberately. I stared at them, unease settling in. That's not better. Behind me, something changed. I didn't turn immediately. I'm guessing, I said carefully, that whatever's happening out there is connected to you. The air remained still. I closed my eyes briefly, then opened them. Please don't let this be my fault again. I didn't turn right away. There's a moment, very specific, when your instincts tell you something behind you has changed, and your brain suggests that maybe, just maybe, if you don't look, it won't become your problem. I stayed in that moment longer than I'd like to admit. I'm going to turn around now, I said, mostly for my own benefit. If this gets worse, I'm blaming past me. I turned. She stood there, not like before. Not just present, not just quiet. The space around her felt organized, like everything had subtly agreed to behave in her presence. The slight delay in her gaze was gone. Both eyes fixed on me at once, steady, precise. I exhaled. Okay, so this is the upgraded version. No answer. I gestured vaguely toward the viewport. You want to explain why the universe is acting like it just received new management. She stepped forward, not threatening, not hesitant, just certain. Everything is responding, she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried in a way that made the room feel smaller. I blinked. Oh, you talk. A brief pause. Not always, she replied. Of course not, that would be too convenient. I ran a hand through my hair, glancing back at the moving structures outside. When you left, things started shifting. Systems, signals, people. Well, I assume people. Hard to confirm when everything goes quiet. They remember, she said. I frowned. Remember what? She held my gaze. What they are connected to. I let that sit for a second, then another. That doesn't sound optional. It was never meant to be, she answered calmly. I laughed once, short and sharp. Right, because forcing an entire galaxy into alignment always ends well. History loves that. She didn't react. Of course she didn't. I paced once, then stopped in front of her. You were in that place for a reason, weren't you? Yes. They weren't just detaining you. They were delaying this. Yes. I pointed at myself, and I helped. She didn't say it. She didn't need to. I exhaled slowly, staring at the floor for a moment before looking back up. I usually smuggle things. Small things. Illegal, yes, but manageable. Not existential changes. A flicker of something passed through her expression. Not quite sympathy. Not quite anything human. You accelerated what was inevitable, she said. That's not comforting, I replied. Silence settled between us, but it wasn't empty this time. It felt resolved. Like the question had already been answered somewhere I couldn't see. I looked at her again, really looked. You came back. Yes. Why? She stepped closer, and for the first time it didn't feel like the space was closing in. It felt like it was waiting. You are not aligned, she said. I frowned. I'm starting to think that's a compliment. It is rare, she continued. You remember before. I let out a quiet breath. So I get to watch everything change while knowing it used to be different. That's the reward. It is a choice. I laughed again, softer this time. There it is. I was wondering when that part would show up. She didn't move. Stand with me, she said, or remain apart. I tilted my head. You're offering me a position in whatever this is. Yes. I considered that, glancing once more at the shifting structures outside, the silent systems, the universe quietly rearranging itself without asking permission. Then I looked back at her. Do I get any say in how this works? No. Thought so. I crossed my arms, thinking. For once I didn't rush it, didn't joke my way around it immediately. Just stood there, actually considering the weight of it. You know, I said eventually, a week ago, my biggest concern was whether my engine would hold together long enough to finish a job. Now I'm being asked to either join a galaxy-wide rewrite or stand on the sidelines, and remember it used to be messier. She waited. I exhaled, a small smile forming despite everything. I've spent most of my life avoiding responsibility. Turns out I'm very good at it. A pause, which probably means, I added, glancing at her, this is where I stopped doing that. Her gaze didn't change, but something in the room shifted, subtle, almost imperceptible. I shook my head lightly. I don't like it, I don't fully understand it, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to regret parts of it. Another breath. But I also don't think I can walk away knowing I had a choice and didn't take it. Silence. Then slowly she inclined her head, not as a command, as acknowledgement. I let out a quiet laugh. This is a terrible decision, I muttered. I'm definitely becoming a different person. The ship hummed softly, steady, unchanged despite everything else. I glanced around the cabin, the same worn faces, the same stubborn systems that had carried me through every bad idea so far. At least I'm consistent, I added. She turned slightly, her attention shifting beyond the ship, beyond the immediate, toward something larger. I followed her gaze. For the first time, the silence outside didn't feel empty. It felt deliberate. I exhaled, settling into it. All right, I said quietly. Let's see what this new version of the universe looks like. And for once, I didn't feel like I was being dragged into something unknown. I stepped forward willingly. Don't forget to support Sci-Fi World for more stories like this. We love you.